which is on our second track on tech sovereignty. So I invite you to take your seats. This is going to be really interesting because what we're going to discuss in this panel is how do we make the case that the control over data, infrastructure, and innovation are essential for the continent's growth and influence in a knowledge economy. And to lead that discussion in a panel titled Framing the Future, Designing a Future We Own, is the incomparable Dr. Shikoh Gitau, who is the founder of Qhala and the convener of the Africa AI Council. Dr. Gitau.
This is working now. Thank you so much, Lydia, for having me. So this is going to be the most fun panel of the whole summit, and it paints out what Africa needs and should have. And I will invite my panelists, starting with Dr. Bayo. Dr. Bayo is one of the smartest brains in Africa. For real. I've known him for years now, and he was very instrumental in helping Nigeria get their strategy. And you know Nigeria is hard. So when they have an AI strategy that actually works, you give kudos to that person. The next person is Ibrahima. Ibrahima is a former cabinet secretary, and he'll introduce himself. So it's exciting to have that, but he is the CEO of PDAA, and he'll tell us what that is. And then after that is Fatima. Fatima heads developer relationship for NVIDIA, and she brings that perspective. And finally is Ine. Ine is a professor. So we have everything represented here from academia. She represents the Halt University, and she's going to bring that out. So welcome, fellas, and let's have a conversation. So we'll start with like a very quick, everybody's mic'd apart from me because the mic refused to work on me. So we'll start with just a rapid introduction of who you are, what you do, and most importantly, define sovereignty in your own words. We'll start with the ladies first. Fatima, this way.
Hi, everyone. My name is Fatima. Great to be here. I was saying at the back of the wall that this is probably the most diverse African panel that I've been on. We have someone from Kenya, Niger, Nigeria. Usually it's like 4 Nigerians and someone else. Great lineup. But yeah, my name is Fatima Tambajang, and I'm with NVIDIA. NVIDIA was founded in 1993. It's an AI company. Most people know it for chips, but we do full stack. And I work with developers and organizations to create applications and go to market.
Okay, thank you very much for having us today. I'm Iman Amer, a proud Tunisian. And today, as we were in the green room, I discovered the love that all fellow Africans they have for Tunisia, so thank you for that. I'm the Vice President of Cluster Digital Africa, which is a think tank where we are trying to rethink how digital governance should be in Africa. And I am also a professor at Holt International Business School. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Ibrahima Gimba Seydou. I'm the CEO of the Partnership for Digital Access in Africa, which is a vehicle that was recently set up to help accelerate digital transformation on the continent by focusing on connectivity, access to devices, and digital scaling. I'm almost a 30-year veteran in the industry. It doesn't look like it. I have been, yes, I'm telling you, I started my career in '95. I'm a satellite engineer. I was within Intelsat, a European satellite organization. And more recently, I was a minister in charge of digital transformation in Niger for 7 years, and left recently to be in this role. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm Olubayo Adekombi, CEO of Data Science Nigeria, which is a talent capacity building and research ecosystem. I'm also a co-founder of Equalize AI, an AI company that is building small language models for domain-specific use cases. Before that, I work in telco as a C-level executive for MTN and Airtel Africa.
Awesome, thank you. They didn't hear the second part of the question, so I'm going to go back, starting again with Fatima, and ask, define for us sovereignty in your own language.
I think when I think about sovereignty, I usually think about ownership of the compute that you're building on. So currently in Africa, just to ground things in truth, the reality is only 5% of AI practitioners have access to compute. 5%. So in as much as we're having conversations about building applications, where are they building the applications? They're typically building it on foreign clouds. When we think about sovereignty, in terms of showing up digitally with our languages, everything comes down to how sovereign is your data and your workflow and how are you storing it.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you. So sovereignty, the way I like to see it is a multidimensional way, right? So when we think about technology sovereignty, we usually just tend to limit that to either the hardware or the software component of it. The reality, to me, there is another element, at least, that requires the understanding of the values, the security aspects, the culture, but as well as the economical independence as well. So when I look at it as this holistic, interconnected term that connects security, values, as well as security, as well as basically the economic and social dimension of it.
I absolutely love that.
Yeah. As to me, I mean, I see it from a different perspective. Of course, it's multidimensional. But first, maybe what it's not. It's not emotional. I think when we talk about sovereignty, we tend to be emotional about it, right? That's, let's say, the end game. But there needs to be a reality check. So I see 3 dimensions. One is people, really in all its dimensions, because it's people that can make things done. 2 is infrastructure. And then 3 is basically anything that is going to regulate that, you know, policies and regulation. So this is how I see sovereignty from those 3 perspectives. And more importantly, it's not emotional.
Awesome. I love that. There is economic values. It's not emotional. It's about owning our own future in terms of infrastructure and data set. So in the last 5-6 months, we've been writing a paper on AI and digital sovereignty for Africa. And Dr. Bayo here is one of the authors. And I would love for him to outline this is great. We've defined it. But the rubber meeting the road, what does it take? What is the components of AI sovereignty?
Good. So I think I will start by tapping into what does it mean, and then I'll go into those pillars as written in our paper. You know, I see it from as a form of participatory influence, the degree to which a nation has influence in how technology or AI is designed, deployed, implemented, or applied in a way that aligns with the ambition and the priority of a nation. So there is a level of collaborative ownership, a sense of inclusion, a sense of intentional participation. Based on the research work that we did, led by Qhala and several other leaders on the continent, we saw it in 6 dimensions. The first dimension is about the degree to which a nation is involved in building the foundational building blocks. Here we're talking about localized data set that reflect the culture, the nuance of the people, the diversity of a community, the models being nuanced, and the algorithm being sensitive to cultural and ethical boundaries. The second thing that we saw that was also important is compute, which has been spoken to. Is the compute power owned? Is it in country? Is it available? Is it accessible? Is it affordable? And can people access it to leverage the data to build something for themselves? And third is talent. Do we have people, the skill set? And the talent here is all encompassing. It's from expert level to data annotator to data collector being in country. And then we move to the issue about governance. To what degree is the governance localized such that AI or technology is fair, is accountable, is interpretable, is representative, and is fair, to represent the culture of the people? And then we talk about the degree of ownership. Ownership means that if there are stakeholders who are defining the future, do we have people getting involved? And in this regard, there's also the economic benefit as well, that people are also unlocking the economic benefit because people are actively participating, whether in storing data, managing data, labeling data. And the last one is influence. Influence is very powerful. Being in control of what happens to your ecosystem or how your data is leveraged or is accessed, such that you are actively involved in shaping the future and actively contributing to the broader narrative of the whole construct of AI or technology at scale, as the case may be.
Awesome. Did we get all of that? Awesome. So, Ibrahima, we had like this tension. So how do we make sovereignty real in Africa?
I think, as I said, it's really not emotional. We have to be, we need to look at the continent as a whole, right? We're talking about one Africa. And that is an opportunity for us to make it happen. Today, most of the conversation, there is a disconnect between what our leaders say, let's say in public, and then the reality. And because then we go back to how all devils, everybody wants to do it on his own, everybody wants to have its own data center, everybody wants to have his own. I think we need to look at, ideally, let's look at Africa as a whole, let's have a blank page. Let's see what makes economic sense. Let's see which countries have some sort of competitive or comparative advantages. Let's link that to our Africa 2063 agenda, because you have other programs around energy. We were talking about compute. In most of our countries, you don't have electricity, right? So how are you going to be talking about AI if you don't have electricity? In most of our, how many engineers are we are graduating on the continent? So these are things that we need to focus on, but really from the continent perspective, not from the country perspective. So that's important. And then another point that I think is important is maybe on the funding and financing, the resources. You can't claim to want to be deploy a sovereign, let's say, data strategy and still think that money is going to come from elsewhere to fund you. I think we need to build those capabilities on the continent. And of course, it shouldn't be also just a closed knock for the continent, because now we live in a global village, so to speak, but Africans have to put really some skin in the game. And last thing is then trust, because in order for you to do that, you need to trust those that are leading you, you need to trust also those that are going to manage all this. I'll stop here, but I think these are the few angles that I believe could help us get there.
Awesome. So there's this tension. So this morning I was in two different events. The first one was a small breakfast that was curated by Vodafone and the Global Council team. And they have done the maths of what it takes to have a data center in every country. The cost is astronomical. But when you talk to ministers, as you said, and with meeting ministers, every minister wants a data center in their country. Yeah? And that's the reality. And then we have countries as big as, I would say Nigeria is like 3/4 of the US in terms of population. There are a lot of people. They want 15 data centers, right? And everybody wants to invest there because of just the bigness of it. But in reality, I wanted to come to you, and we had a conversation around, yes, you might have data center, then what?
Exactly. So thank you for that part. So in an idealistic world, we would really own 100% of what we have. And that's a human nature to be connected to what we own, right? But the moment we try to have transactions, right, we need to somehow ensure that we can keep our, property, but in the same time have that openness, right? So when we think about sovereignty in that specific case, we need to look at it that, okay, it's not just about owning the data centers and no longer using others or the next door neighbor, but rather look at it as what we could leverage from within, right? What could be ours, and what we could maybe somehow accept to get that connection with the neighbors or oversee, etc. And that leads us to an important part that was highlighted, it's not about control. Sovereignty is not about control. It's more about making sure that we feel secure, that there is trust between all the stakeholders, that when I am an end user, whether I am a young student or I am an executive or I am a person working in a farm, everyone is part of that ecosystem, right? So data sovereignty is so huge, and it connects directly to like the national security. And when we think about national security, there is like health elements, there are climate elements, there are different components to it. But that does not exclude that we like secure what we have, and there are, and I believe Fatima can talk more about that elements when it comes to how we will do it technically, right? And that is possible, but that does not exclude that we could enhance it with ways where we could represent what we have most and enable that openness to others, and that allow us to build that competitive advantage so we could make people come to us because we are not in silo, but we are a country that is welcoming others, so we could work all together while we are protecting our own. But most importantly, we need to make more data that is coming from us, so it will be worldwide represented.
Awesome. So I have like a summary for that. It's open, grounded, and rooted. That is what sovereignty is about, right? And it came from them when we were discussing this. But Fatima, there's one component that we need to get a reality. So in April, during the Global AI Summit on Africa, one of the key numbers that came out was Africa needs 5,000 PhDs to be able even to start this, right? We need about 100,000 other developers. Right now, as you said, only 5% of the said talent have access to compute. How do we solve this chicken and egg problem that we have? Yeah? Should we get compute first? Should we get talent first? Should we get data set? How would you approach it?
I think it's symbiotic, right? You have to look at each one of them as one holistic picture. Another stat that surprises people, but only 1% of research comes out of Africa when it comes to artificial intelligence. And out of those researchers, we have 2 on the stage. And I think that deserves a round of applause. That's Dr. Bayo and Shikoh. You know, and I think, you know, that's part of the chicken and egg, right? I think they're doing the work with what they have. And I think typically when NVIDIA comes into the room, people often assume that we're coming to ask them for millions. And both you guys have access to GPUs, right? And it's not necessarily about how much GPUs do you have. What are you doing with the GPUs that you have? That's the most important thing. And it goes back to your point on PhDs. So we've seen in the market where people have GPUs, but they don't know what to do with them. They're leaving them on for 16, 18 hours, and you know, they're running bills. And to your point, in Tunisia, which most people know, that's our model country in terms of where we found success, is because the market doesn't work in silos. So an example would be an organization in Tunisia will buy a DGX, which is typically around 100 to 200K, and they'll open up that DGX to other universities, to the public sectors and to startups, and they're creating applications. And again, it's the believability factor. I think if you tell a startup to build something in fintech, they're happy to do it because they've seen Paystack, Flutterwave. But the reality is the largest exit in Africa is an AI startup, and that was InstaDeep, 700 million. So that's like, what, 2 to 3 times what Paystack is? And what Kareem has done is he's invested his money back into the ecosystem. He's bought GPUs. And when Kareem bought GPUs from NVIDIA back in, what, 2017, it was $4,000. So again, it's just get started, and then, you know, the road will continue to be unpaved. But, you know, waiting for 500 million, 100 million in the African context, you know, isn't necessarily the best way to look at it.
Okay, and I'll jump to it. I'm so happy I'm a moderator for this session because I have a lot to say. So I'll just go ahead and ask questions. Ibrahima, what is the role of private sector in what Fatima has said?
I think the private sector actually has maybe the most important role, maybe, because they're the one that are going to make all this sustainable, because we need to have really a business case around that. And even to get to where we want, the we need to serve the demand, if you will. So the use cases, right? Health centers. I was minister during COVID in Niger. So imagine the challenges that we face there. You barely have a data center. You have connectivity challenges, etc. So we had to innovate, and that's where really the private sector, especially the local one, we need to get them more involved, and then bring partners from outside. Like in Niger, what we did, we brought partners from. I brought a team from the Silicon Valley to come work with us, and then we built an ecosystem then. And then when COVID hit, so from the distance, because we were able to establish a good connectivity, we were able to work remotely. But these are the type of, I think, approach that we need to have, but at scales. We have very wealthy individuals on the continent. We have, really, money is not the problem. And then we also know-how is not the problem. We have also very good SMEs or startups that are doing the work. And that's where I think we need to put most of the resources. And then last, maybe on that, that's where also maybe the governments, if you will, need to come together and then create that sort of attractive playing field for the private sector. But looking at it not only from a country perspective, because size matters. Africa is so fragmented. So let's try to create champions on the continent. And then let's look at that 1.3, 1.4 billion people that we're looking at.
I love that. Size matters. Yeah. And I'll come to you, Dr. B. One of the key things, and we've had this discussion with Fatima a long time, is Africa needs its own models, right? But you happen to have written, I mean, it has SLM, and everybody who thinks SLM is a small thing to do, building a model of any size is a lot of work. But he already has like a model that works in the market, right? What will be a cheat sheet for anybody who is sitting here, academic, private sector? I'll come to government because I want to ask you a question around government. Is what will be a cheat sheet to say Africa can build its own models?
Yeah, thank you very much. Just to contextualize, so when you are talking about models, that is similar to what we are all familiar with. Excuse me. That's ChatGPT, large language model, which can do everything. But when we talk about small language models, we're talking about something that is very specific to a domain. For example, there's something called Telco LLM. Telco LLM allows you to interact with telecom-specific data set such that it understands all the terminologies, the network, and all of that, and is able to interact well. Now, what we've seen is that in order to build small language model that works within a domain, it is not just technical expertise. You need domain expert. For example, the one that we first released that is being used heavily now is for family planning. With the support of Gates Foundation. In order for us to do that, we work with network of family planning counselors. I mean, we're talking about over 500 counselors who understand the language, who understand the context. And then we label over 2 years call center data of people who have called the call center to express their concerns. So we're able to capture their nuances, their terminologies, and of course their idiolects, which is not what you are going to scrape online, so that the solution works. And the second thing is that you need infrastructure, and you need a program that supports that. And I will give kudos to NVIDIA. We joined NVIDIA Inception program. We bought our own GPU, but they gave us a discount. And that helped us to be able to scale a lot of our small language model, deploy it commercially, and start supporting businesses. So the pathway is very simple. Number one, you need the real data of the people if you want to build solutions that solve real problems. And I need to also mention that the general models are also very important as well because they provide the foundation. And we're quite lucky today on the continent that most of them are now being made open source. For example, 2 days ago, Nigeria released N-Atlas, and I'm glad that the founders are Wiley, they're also here. Yeah. So, and that is a call to other African countries. We need to provide the foundational model, then others like Equalizer, like we have done, we can then start building small language model, and the likes of NVIDIA can come onto the table to provide infrastructure, and then academia can then use it to do benchmark, standardize and drive new frontiers of impact.
Yes. Yeah, I'm going to add like the Inception program helps us also do here. We have 2 SLMs. They're going to be launched later in this month. Yeah, I know Awari people are like, yeah, they beat us by 6 months in announcing us. But we have the SLM, and thank you. I mean, there's resources if you're looking for them, and NVIDIA has been super supportive to the thing. But coming to us, to that, Fatima, you have a wide scope understanding of the developer ecosystem in Africa, what academia, what startups, and what everybody else is doing in terms of building. That believability aspect, and I think we've spoken about it many times. What is that spark or thing that needs to be switched on for developers and the investor community to believe that Africa can build?
I always say this, right? If Tunisia was Nigeria, what's happening in Tunisia would be a lot louder, right? like much, much louder, right? And I think I was telling her, earlier in March, for example, at our GTC, our CEO wanted to see one key partner from Africa. Guess where they were from?
Nigeria.
Tunisia.
Oh, wow.
And guess where they were doing?
Nigeria is ghetto.
Academia.
Yeah.
And we had billionaires, we had millionaires. He didn't care about how much GPUs are you buying. He was just confused about what's happening in this country, because ISPRI, which is a leading university in Tunisia, was more active than Cambridge, Oxford, and MIT. And again, going back to her point, it is an ecosystem thing. You can't work in silos. You can't work in fragmentations. I think Tunisia has more than a dozen universities that focus specifically on STEM. So what happens is every single year, they have more than 10,000 grad students in STEM. So the GSIs, global system integrators, can absorb them. And then they're being outsourced to France, to Germany. The diaspora comes home in Tunisia. Pristini, for example, was set up by fellow Tunisians. And they all went to the Carnegie Mellons, the Stanfords, and they're coming home and they're building. Now, when I go to sub-Saharan Africa, what we tend to see is everyone is building an island separately. Like yesterday, I was in a 1-hour meeting in the middle of I think 52nd with one of our partners, and they're like, we're doing this. I'm like, okay, but Dr. Bai is also doing it. How about you combined? Even in the Kenya ecosystem, we've had these conversations. So I think if you're going to investors and the market looks fragmented, it's scary to invest. And to finish up my point, Dr. Bayo and I 2 weeks ago in Nigeria hosted a session with enterprise customers. I think in total, the revenue between all the 12 partners was about 500 million. And they're all ready to invest. And they all said that we don't want to buy GPUs by ourselves. We want to go to a telco to buy the GPUs, right? So I know, Peter, you sat in front here. So, the Safaricom's, the MTNs. MTN has announced it. I don't know what people have seen, but MTN has announced that they're setting up a data center in Nigeria, 240 million. They're setting one up in South Africa. We have Cassava. So in terms of believability, this is the biggest year that we've seen, at least from our purview. But it all started from the work academia did 10 years ago, the Bokosis who aren't here, Dr. Benji's, the Indabas, AI Saturdays, and so forth. And I think people forget the grassroots when they're having these conversations.
Awesome. And I wanted her to emphasize on the grassroots. There is a lot of work happening in Africa's grassroots when it comes to AI. And so it's not the 5,000 PhDs that we are seeking for. It's the 100, 200, 300 developers who come to hackathons and they're trying to solve something. They've read every single transformer paper and they're trying to understand, how do I build a transformer from scratch? And so why we have the lab, thanks to the work that we are doing with NVIDIA, is these developers are coming, we just need GPUs that we can actually afford. And you say, what will it take for us to get some GPUs in the market that can be accessed by the market? And we are having all these people building stuff because the constraints have been removed, and that's what we're excited about. I come to you. We've spoken a lot about money, so I know we have 10 minutes, so that's enough time to discuss some money, but not all money, so just to leave enough tension in the room. So we had a good discussion about money. Again, we announced the African AI Fund in April. Africa has the ambition to raise $60 billion fund to fund the African AI ambition. A big chunk of it is going to go to infrastructure. As Ibrahima said, we cannot say AI is going to work in isolation. We need power. We had a conversation yesterday where we were saying Africa can be the world's data center, because we have the green energy, we have the talent. And that one of the most in-demand skills right now is electricians, And we have lots of those in Africa. But where's the money coming from
Well, this is a very tricky question, right? Because so there is money that is from the country itself, but that doesn't mean that the country should not collaborate with other, let's say, stakeholders from overseas, right? A great example is NVIDIA, right? So NVIDIA is not African as an organization, but it's supporting a lot of the work and enabling work to be happening. So when it comes to that specific part, we should not like exclude the collaboration. It's not the help. It's a collaboration, right? The key to the money here, or to the economics, because when we think about it as money, it's very restrictive. It's not a dollar sign to it or equivalent or local equivalent. It's more the economics of it. It's how we're gonna create value. So it's not only limited to this is a one-time financing, because this is where we create failing points, right? It's not about one-time investment. It's about building a relationship to create value. And for that, we need a partnership. And a partnership where we have a word to say, where every single member around the table would be putting what they are looking for. And the challenge in that specific case is the fragmentation that we were talking about it earlier. Every single country within the African Union wants to be the leading continent, the country in the continent of AI. So each time I have been in panels or discussing, we're doing the AI to be the leader of X. But that is great. Instead, what we could do is, how about we leverage what we have? So we could scale it up, because when it is fragmented, we cannot have that value creation go to the next stage. And to Fatima's point earlier, she mentioned that Tunisia has done a great example with STEM education. Yes, but we're 12 million only Tunisian, out of which 2 million are abroad. And that is not a great scale, right? It's very, very limited. The key is how we could connect with each other, take the best of each one of us to create that competitive advantage. So we are not only receiving or like having money from externals, but having a partnership around value creation. So that is when it comes to money. But that requires much more than just thinking of the money. It requires the point that earlier we have been referring to, that is the policy side of it. And when we think about the policy element, we need to be agile, right? Policies usually very like rigid and squared. But we are in a moment where we need to actually accept that we are moving forward all together, and accept that today, if the policy is not enabling innovation, it's not serving us well. So, and in perspective to sovereignty, having an innovative policy does not exclude sovereignty. So we need to build it as embedded in the policy, so it protects us, and we can have a great infrastructure, we can have the research, and we can enhance each other so that we can create that monetary value and have an economic impact.
Awesome. Ibrahima is trying to get Africa some money, so tell us.
I like how she said yeah, but maybe there is one thing that I'd like to maybe leave you with. It's, let's say, a concept that they call carpooling, because again, we have, there needs to be an economic sense to what we do and optimize what we do. Again, initially say, let's look at Africa as a whole. So this concept of carpooling, you know that when you carpool, there are three benefits. One, you go in one direction, right? You don't go in different directions, that's one. Two, you optimize your resources, you create synergy, because you use one car instead of 10. Three, because you're all carpooling, you have an opportunity to chit-chat, to know what the other person is doing, and then you can collaborate. That's the vision. Recently, we just finalized an agreement with Mission 300. I don't know if you heard of it. It's an initiative led by the World Bank and African Development Bank, supported by Rockefeller Foundation and few, to connect 300 million Africans to electricity by 2030. So we just had an agreement with them to have a nexus of electrification and connectivity. Recent report on just connectivity in Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa alone has more than almost 800 million people who are within covered areas but are not connected. So what we're trying to do and what we're doing is to combine those two to really go very quickly on a mission to connect value-added services across the continent by bringing connectivity and energy at the same time. I'm glad to see what Nigeria is doing because Nigeria is going to be one of the flagship. Yesterday I was telling him I was with Minister Pate from Minister of Health, and then we'd like to really, with Minister Pate, Bothum, and the rest, to work as a whole and then to quickly deploy that type of a solution, which is going to be like a blueprint for the continent. And while we do that, we're discussing with countries like DRC, Kenya, Tanzania, because that's where you have largest gap, 100 million, or Ethiopia. And then the resources are there from those organizations, but also, I keep saying it, we need to mobilize the resources from within the continent and from the diaspora. Yeah. Look at the amount of money, it's about what, 95 billion per annum that goes in the country. But it's misused because we're all sending money to buy stuff for our families. So how can we turn that into an investment? And then how can we leverage that so that not only are we able to support, let's say, the social aspect of what we're doing, but to actually fund really those critical investments that we need to do and then have a return and then have sovereignty and then have really the drive that we need.
Awesome. In fact, I want to shout out to Dindi from One. Mm-hmm. She's done a fantastic job in setting up the Africa Health Fund from diaspora remittance. So go and read about it. It's like a blueprint on how to fundraise for Africa, and I love that you are already tapping into it. Yeah. So, Dr. B, you're going to answer this question for the two of us. As somebody who selling the African AI vision is really hard, and you have to show people results before they give you anything in terms of funding. If there's a startup here or listening online, what's their first step to just getting started?
I think the best thing is to see opportunity. Anytime you talk about investors, they're talking about the size of the opportunity that exists. You're talking about 1.4 billion people. There's so much infrastructural gaps that exist. And those infrastructural gaps, you cannot fix them through the traditional mechanism. We need something smarter and better. So the whole theory of leapfrog is very real on the continent. Look at the innovation we've seen with M-Pesa, and I'm glad that Peter is here. That did not happen in any other part of the world. It happened in Africa. Why? Because we have the capability to turn everyday thing into something extraordinary. So if an investor is listening, if you want real return on investment, Africa provides that huge opportunity to serve 1.4 million people profitably. And evidence have proven, CK Prahalad's work, there is wealth at the bottom of the pyramid. Those little changes that we make in their qualities of life, finance, health, agriculture, financial inclusion, drive incremental, incremental economic return, and there is a lot of value that comes from that. So, the market size is there. The immediate use cases that we have seen are proofs Africa is the next best place to invest. Awesome. Be there.
Awesome. So, I mean, let me tell you, when Nigeria says they start speaking about 1.4 billion, you better listen, because Nigeria is the most resistant. They're saying, oh, we are a big enough country. We can be able to be a market by ourselves. But when Dr. B says we are a big enough market as an African continent, please listen to him. So I'm going to just take one round of closing remarks, please. 20 seconds each, is if you are woken up in the middle of the night, 2:30 a.m., and asked, what's the one thing that you would put out to Africa, either to a policymaker, to a startup, to private sector, that will inspire action, what will that be? Fatima?
I'm going to try and be quick. To Ibrahim's point, carpooling. Yeah. And I think a good example of that is going to be in Daba. It's going to be their 10th edition in Nigeria, co-hosted by Dr. Bayo and DSN. So in Daba is basically the Super Bowl of artificial intelligence. Yeah. Unilag is going to also have their own GPUs, so that's going to be an example of AI sovereignty. So everyone to check it out. It's going to happen in August 2026. 26, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, great. To make it very quick, we already started the action, and it's Emergent Economies AI Network. That's how we want to get all the great minds and get to action. This is a call. You're welcome to check it out. That's where we want to have a connection to build that ecosystem and get to the bottom line.
Yeah, I'll echo what Fatima said and add one dimension to that, which is people. We have the youngest population on the planet. All, again, that we're doing, it's about serving them. It's about unleashing that power. So we need to have that in mind and then also have a sense of urgency. I think we spend our time in forums discussing having a blueprint. So now it's time for action. Let's have those use cases. Let's put the youth to work. Let's focus on the enablers, health. If people are not healthy, again, COVID has been a good lesson for us. So let's build on that. Let's carpool and solve our problems on the continent.
I think I would just bring us to African Village Square by quoting an African proverb, which says, if you want to go far, if you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far, we go together. So I think partnership will make a difference.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah. Like, I mean, I loved this panel, and I always say inspire action, not just inspire, because we are so used, as he said, in these anger meetings to have like great declarations and stuff, and then you go home and come back next year to do the exact same thing. So in terms of a commitment is commit to doing something, get a model out there. It might be scrappy, it might have so many bugs, get something out there. Inspire a child to do something. Just do something amazing for the African continent. It can be done. And that's what we have to say. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a lovely, lovely rest of the summit.